Hi everyone, it's Michael, and I am so excited to be doing the bloom profile for number 34 in my collection, my Ludisia Discolor. Now before I show you, I just want to let you know I had considered not showcasing this in bloom because the plant is still partially developed. So I received this as a division in September of 2017 from my dear friend Nicole. Hi Nicole, love you so much. Thank you for this beautiful plant. And it's not a fully established plant. It was just a tiny little division. And I just never imagined it would bloom this way. So at first I was kind of thinking, okay, let me allow the plant to become more fully developed. I want it to become larger and more robust. But then I realized, no, I want to show you what this plant is capable of doing, even as a tiny little division, because to me it was quite impressive. So without further lead in, let me just show you. You guys, what a bizarre, wonderful, gorgeous plant this is. Do you see this? Ugh. I just can't get over, the spike is so big, it's almost 2 feet tall, and the flowers are just gorgeous. It's so interesting how many people say that this plant is not known for its flowers because I absolutely adore the flowers. It's so, so stunning. And I don't know if you can see, but the flower spike itself is kind of furry and hairy, which is pretty common with terrestrial orchids, but it's just such a bizarre little plant. Now, if I take you in closer, you can see that it is growing growths inside of the container and in between all of these leca pellets. So when I first received this plant, everyone told me not to put it into semi-hydroponics. They were like, no, 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 it's not gonna work. It's a terrestrial orchid. And I was convinced they were right because for a very, very long time, this did absolutely nothing. But for whatever reason, when I moved from Colorado to Los Angeles, this plant just took off. And then it started to put out all those new starts and new leads, and it really started to expand within the container. But suffice to say, these can absolutely grow in semi-hydroponics. There's not even a top dressing of sphagnum moss on this one, and it seems to be doing just fine. It does seem to want to grow pendant. So again, it just seems, when you look at the plant, it wants to grow down and up. And I think it's pretty remarkable that the blooms find their way to growing straight up no matter what the disposition is of the plant itself. So I think that's really interesting as well. Now in terms of the timeline on this plant, the flower spike appeared on November 18th, but it didn't go into bloom until January 3rd. So it was about a month and a half waiting period until I actually started to see the blooms. And it has been in bloom ever since then. I don't know how long this will stay in bloom. I will obviously, as always, update the description below so you'll see the exact dates of when it goes into bloom and when it stops blooming. Now let's go in closer and talk through some of the specifics. In terms of where the flower spikes form, it's right at the end of each growth. Now what happens is you'll see a tiny little leaf. It looks like a very immature growth, but that is just a segue leading into the flower spike forming. From there, it's such a bizarre acceleration because it appears like a little alien pod for a very long time as it grows and develops. And then it starts to unfurl and you start to see some of the actual blooms. Now, in terms of the bloom size, each bloom is about the size of a dime. They're quite small. In terms of the coloration of the blooms, they are a lovely soft white with just the slightest pop of canary yellow in the dead center. The foliage is actually what these plants are prized for, and as you can see, it is this gorgeous shade of velvety green. The leaves themselves have a bit of a burgundy underside, and there are matching stripes on the very top of the leaves. In terms of the fragrance of this plant, I would absolutely not describe this as a fragrant orchid. If you put your nose really far up into the blooms, you will get the slightest scintilla of something that smells really lovely and fresh, but it's not a floral scent at all, and it's not gonna permeate your home. In terms of the bloom duration, I'm not quite sure how long this is gonna last. It's said that the blooms will last for at least 2 weeks, but mine actually bloomed January 3rd, and it is currently February 9th. So it's been in bloom for well over a month for me. And something interesting is happening. The die-off is chronological. So the first blooms to open were the ones down here at the very, very bottom. And if I bring you in close, you can see they're starting to brown and die off. But the blooms at the very, very top haven't even opened yet, you guys. So I don't know how long this will stay in bloom, but I will absolutely update the description below so you will know definitively once it stops being in bloom. Now the Ludisia Discolor is typically a winter bloomer, but these can actually bloom anytime between September and March. So it really just depends on your environment and how things go. So having said all that, I am just so elated to see this plant in bloom. It is absolutely stunning and quite unexpectedly so. This was never one of the plants I thought would be a standout in my collection or that I would take so much joy from observing its development, but what an unexpected journey with this plant, and I really look forward to seeing how this continues to mature and develop. In fact, if these leads really get going, I kind of think this will be like a beautiful chandelier one day. And that's my hope. So as always, thank you guys so much for choosing to spend your time with me. If you have any questions, concerns, or feedback, go ahead and leave it in the comment section below. Don't forget to click subscribe and have a beautiful rest of your day. Mwah! Bye guys.